evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to have our panel discussion in English just because we have actually English-speaking participants. I guess this is the biggest panel as of today, right? And I guess over the entire conference, right? So very good. No, I will be standing and just probably will be sitting there. It's easier for me. So my name is Konstantin Saroyan. I'm Secretary General of the Federation of Euro-Asian Stock Exchanges. Our federation unites stock exchanges, CSDs, technological companies, development institutions whose activity is toward development of the capital markets in their countries. We have 35 members from from 23 countries. And as I said, so we are focusing on capital market development. We have quite experienced panel sitting here. I'm not gonna steal their breath and would like ask them to introduce themselves. Gentlemen, please briefly about who you are and what your company is doing actually. Because we heard the short introduction of the names, but actually probably many of the audience participants would like to understand what actually are you doing. Jerome.
Thank you, Constantin. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jerome Clausen. I'm the special advisor of BPIFRANCE for Eurasia, actually Caucasus and Central Asia. BPIFRANCE is the French public investment bank, and it's also the sovereign wealth fund of the French Republic. So we have actually 45 billion euros of assets under management. And we strongly invest, of course, in fintechs and in early stage technologies with a portfolio of 100 million euro now of investment. And of course, our focus is to develop our activities in relation with Armenia, more especially, and Caucasus. And we would like to thank very much Unibank in general and Gagic in particular for the opportunity of speaking and sharing views with you today.
Thank you. Philippe?
Philippe from France. I'm now a consultant, but I used to be an investment banker for about 20 years, working for the first European group in bank, insurance, and asset manager, and previously for the first US bank. And now I'm a consultant mostly in bonds as an investor, as an investment opportunity. And this is why the reason I'm here is to talk about bonds.
I'm AIK Yegaнян, the CEO of AMX Armenian Securities Exchange, stock exchange of Armenia. At the same time in the board of CSD Armenia. We are the only securities exchange in Armenia. We're trying to develop it, and one of the largest missions that we accomplished was that we convinced Warsaw Stock Exchange to buy 65% of AMX. So now our major shareholder is Warsaw Stock Exchange, and hopefully will become a bridge hub for a transaction between Eurasian Economic Union and the western part of the earth.
Hello everyone, my name is Edgar Evoyan. I am the ARFI platform manager at Armenian National Interest Fund. I'm sure most of you have heard about ANIF, which is an Armenian sovereign wealth fund with a mandate to attract foreign investments, promote export growth, and co-invest in large-scale investment projects. And recently, ANIF has initiated the development of a special investment crowdfunding platform, which we'll be launching very soon. So in this sense, we are opening a new page in the Armenian financial ecosystem, which will hopefully have its impact on the capital markets.
Hello everyone, my name is Samson Avetyan. Thanks to our organizers for organizing the event. We operate in the venture finance ecosystem, basically startups, innovation, and so on. I'm the co-founder of Angel Investor Club of Armenia, which basically brings together angel investors, high net worth individuals who invest in technology companies. We also are kind of looking into the space of equity crowdfunding as well, but that was mostly in focus on innovation, startups, and technology. We're doing some other projects as well, but mostly in the venture finance space. So thanks, and looking forward to the panel.
Thank you, gentlemen. So how we are going to build our panel discussion? Actually, as you see, we have representatives from different areas, and each of them are representing a particular financial area of the development of fintech startup or any company. So that's why we are going to cover starting from seed financing and seed capital to IPOs. And let's see how it may happen, particularly in Armenia and probably in some part of the Europe. So that's why my first question will be probably addressed to Samson, as you said. So you are representing Angel Investors Club and also the venture capital financing. So please share with the audience what kind of initiatives are you currently doing and how you see the development of that particular part of financing in Armenia.
Yes, thank you. That's an important, it's an important question. Armenia has seen a fairly good traction within the technology innovation space over the last several years. So it's a very highly sector that grows with a fairly good speed. And around that, we have several different initiatives taking place, whether it's within financial side, marketing side, or legal. On our end, AICA, we have financed 15 or so startups. But there are other companies as well, or other organizations as well, like Business Angel Network. We have 4 or 5 different venture funds. So that space is actually developing quite rapidly, but there's still plenty of things to do. But I would say that's a sector where we are, relative to everything else in Armenia, we are fairly competitive on that. But there's plenty of work to do still. Last, as an example, we've seen some 400-500 million of investments going into Armenian startups last year. Everything from, I don't know, AI to different other, mostly it's AI strength that we have in Armenia, but there are other specificities as well, specific domains as well. What else should I mention? In general, the ticket sizes are still $500,000 fundraising rounds. Another thing is this is a new area, so we still are somewhat capital constrained. Our venture finance space is mostly reliant on angel money, and I think this crowdfunding initiatives that Edgar and ourselves are doing should be able to expand this into the retail space. Because venture finance in our case is in general, if you look at other countries, developed countries, most of the money comes from the institutional channels. So whether it's pension funds, whether it's banks, whether insurance companies. So we still have a lot of work to do to make sure the venture finance in Armenia is not only reliant on a certain number of angels, but also is reliant on a broader financial system.
Thanks, Edgar. Just to add on what Samson has been telling, please, can you elaborate more on what you are planning to do in regard with the crowdfunding and why crowdfunding? I mean, so probably you have noticed some demands from that perspective, and you think that will be at least one of the main channels of financing fintech startups.
Thank you.
Startups in general, but fintech particularly.
So I will try to mention a few advantages that investment crowdfunding platforms in general they have, and that will our companies, private companies, will benefit from. So basically, the first one is that it's a tool to onboard new investors that can be a sort of their new advisors and future customers of their product. So it's also a great marketing tool. Crowdfunding campaigns tend to, bring in a lot of public attention to the company, and especially if the company is also doing a PR campaign alongside it. And the third one is it's a great validation tool actually for their products and services, because usually before doing an investment on the platform, investors have an emotional attachment to the co-founder, their story, and when they invest, it means that they would use the product and services. And with if the crowdfunding campaign succeeds, the company is sure enough that the product is demanded and the project will succeed. However, I would like to also mention a few, constraints that we see basically in Armenia. So the first one is, I would say, the overall our market research shows that the companies are still sort of afraid to share their companies. They're sort of the babies, right? They started them from scratch, they developed it, and they don't want to share it with dozens and hundreds of other investors they don't know. So it's an educational problem that I think all of us has to address. Including the later IPOs in the Armenian Stock Exchange, for example. And the next thing is that companies usually, we still lack Series A, B, C financing possibilities in Armenia, which results in that IT companies, they open their headquarters in overseas so that later they can use the financing from there. And it's actually a problem for all of us. Including maybe some legal environment. The legal environment is in place. The investors' rights are protected. But in practice, we see that overseas venture capital firms, they don't want to invest into companies that are registered in Armenia. So I think it should be in our agenda, sort of to create the environment for our next IT unicorn company to be born in Armenia, raised, have funding within this jurisdiction. So basically it should be in our target for all of us.
Yeah, good point. So probably some of you knows that I'm also a member of Angel Investors Club in Armenia. And by the way, Samson, we have been discussing these issues related to why Armenian startups, they want to be registered, and they are moving actually the capital flows in US particularly. So what do you think? What should be done in Armenia in order to make those companies to be registered here and to attract capital here?
Yeah, so the thing is, as Edgar mentioned as well, there's a lot of educational financial literacy work to be done, so I do agree with that. But also, with regard to Series A, Series B, most of the time Armenian companies get to Series A and then they're basically forced to raise that money abroad because we don't have enough capital here allocated to that specific sector. So hopefully with ANIF and other players, we will be able to attract institutional money, and in that case, the amount of capital going into the space would be higher. So in that case, we will be able to participate in Series A, Series B. And that way, this value capture that takes place after Series A will accrue to Armenia as well, not only to foreign investors.
Thanks. Jerome, what are the trends regarding fintech sector in France and in Europe, and from the perspective BPIFRANCE? And also the second question is, what are the investment tools that BPIFRANCE use to boost fintech?
Yeah, we have observed actually significant growth in fintech in France, for example, over the past 5 years. The amount of investment has been multiplied by 10 actually in 5 years. And if we just take the year 2021, we have 100 million euros which have been invested in the fintech sector. We consider also that the sector is attractive because it has also, first of all, it is bringing and keeps bringing every year investors, including actually not only business angels, but also venture capitalists, more especially. And the sector has become more mature, so it gives more confidence to the customers, to the market, and also to the different stakeholders of companies. Another maybe and third indicator which is interesting, it's the acquisitions. Fintechs are raising the interest of international and national players. We can just make we can name actually 2 acquisitions which have been made by traditional French banks recently. The acquisition of Shine by Société Générale and the acquisition of Budget by Crédit Mutuel, which, as Philippe knows, has been quite consistent on the market. We have actually, as a result of all these indicators, decided to invest. So today, a bit more than 100 million euros have been funded into the fintech. And we have developed two tools, actually, 2 special tools to make it happen and to make it sustainable. The first one is actually a tool called Digital Venture Team. It's a fund dedicated to tickets of investment from 200,000 euros up to 10 million euros. So these are the tickets. And over 10 million euros, we have the large venture team. And this large venture team is actually paving the way for unicorn, I would say, in France. So the message that we can share, or I would say experience, is that it's important for a fintech company to be sustainable over the time, and for this we need different étages, different layers on the rocket, from I would say small to big fund, to medium funding, up to large fundings, and that's how the company can be sustainable over the long run.
Yeah, and what about other criteria? So you mentioned just a kind of a financial covenants, right? But what about, so the fintech company should be born in France or should be linked to France?
Actually, it should be basically linked to France, but we can build the bridge with foreign companies. And if we talk about, let's say, Armenia, we can develop together a tool which has been launched and which has been successful with our neighboring European countries, called the International Tech Partnership. And this International Tech Partnership brings together one French company with one, let's say, Armenian company. It brings BPIFRANCE with a local or national bank in Armenia, let's say Unibank. And the project should be technological and oriented to fintech. And we can together bring a loan of 3 million euros to make this cross-border fintech story happen.
Thank you. Is speaking French is mandatory?
Things have changed over the time, and I will pay the floor to Philippe.
And of course, Philippe...
You need to eat snails and frog legs. That's a condition.
It's good that you pick up the mic, because the question will be to you. You said that you have quite a big experience in assisting in issuance of corporate bonds. And what is your experience in this regard, and how you see actually the startups of fintech industry, or probably some other corporate financing industry, can be developed for Armenia, in Armenia?
I must say, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you much for taking the opportunity for me to speak about this and to talk about your corporate bonds. But I must say, Konstantin, I'm very happy with the way that you have positioned the panel, because you're right. It's like if you imagine a pyramid, and at the bottom you have the seeds for the business angels and the Series A and B and C's and D's. And then you have bank loans coming. When you have profits, then the banks would start lending to you. In between, you probably got mezzanine finance as well, and close to this is corporate bonds. which often are brought to the corporates by investment banks, but not necessarily. It can also come from the needs from the corporates themselves. And then eventually, you're right, you've got the IPOs onto the exchange. Yeah. So I must say that this is a very good idea, because you can follow the way that this panel is constructed, as the way as the life of a corporate is constructed. Corporate bonds, as I said, comes after usually the seeds and the own capital venture and the bank loans. So past that, to a bit answer your question, you need probably 3 years of positive EBITDA to start thinking about corporate bonds. But once you have established yourself with capital and bank loans and profitability, as I said, at the minimum of 3 years, you can start thinking about corporate bonds. And I wanted to take the example of what I've built recently in Russia, which is as a concept, I wanted to bring all the participants in the life of a financial program, if you wish, plan. And you have the exchange, you have the regulator, usually the central bank, you have banks, the underwriting, you have brokers, you have consultants like myself who are trying to organize everything together. And I would love to have the possibility to bring this experience, practical experience, to Armenia. And talking with you last night and again today, I'm amazed the fact that Armenia could be an international hub for the CIS countries, mostly due to your position as a federation of the Eurasian stock exchanges, but not only. I think Armenia has a lot to offer. Transparency, nice country and nice people. The position itself is much better to me than some other, which I will not mention, but other places in CIS countries, which are from a European perspective, not as, how shall I say, transparent than Armenia is. So I believe in Armenia. Corporates, European corporates, namely France, Italy, Germany, and possibly Poland, have the network of SMEs, small and medium enterprises, who would favor corporate bonds issuance. So my desire and will is to bring those SMEs into Armenia as an international hub again for the CIS, and bring all the participants, possibly even to the business angels. If you start at the bottom of the pyramid, we can accompany them up to the IPO, the top of the pyramid. And I've done that before, as I said, in Russia. I've got all the connections that we need with the help of Jerome in Western Europe to commence, to start. So whenever there's a need, which there are, there's a will, the trust will come. I think Rajan mentioned the contactless payment panel. Trust is needed to bring the corporate with the investors together. But whenever there's a will, there's a trust, there's always a solution. Voilà.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your trust in Armenia and in Armenian development, let's say. I would say from my perspective, because I'm not only representing the stock exchanges or the federation, but I'm also quite contributing toward development of corporate governance here in Armenia. And as I said, so I'm alumni of INSEAD and IDP. And then from that perspective, yes, I agree that we should build at some point of time, of course, the trust. And trust, based on trust, we should build the corporate governance, sound corporate governance. And now we are moving very smoothly to AIC, who is representing AMX, and as he said, so they have now institutional investor and strategic partner of Warsaw Stock Exchange. But nevertheless, I would like, let's hear from AIC what kind of opportunities currently SMEs, probably startups or fintechs, have on stock exchange. So is it easy or not? Just start talking and I will ask some questions to you.
Well, anyone can list on the stock exchange if they have a 1-year history. Hypothetically speaking, we have like 3 listing categories, A, B, C. C is it means like admission to trading. It's like a trading platform. And if you are a company with 1-year history, you are eligible, legally you are eligible to come and apply for an admission to trading. So you can become a traded company. And okay, we are in the process of developing a new concept for especially like startup companies, that the requirements will be less and it will be much easier, less paperwork would be required, because usually whenever you go to admission even trading, the lowest level, you need to have an approval from the central bank. But now with the help of this crowdfunding concept, there is this new conceptual kind of ideology that someone can become traded company without like filling up 300 pages of prospectus, etc., but with a very short prospectus. But in any case, we discussed before as well, we need investment bankers, we need small, even for SME companies, we need underwriters. These are the guys, these are the companies who are mining the paper. Basically, whenever you list, you create a paper to be traded, whether it's a bond or it's an equity. Usually a fintech company wouldn't think about securitization or issuing new securities. It's the job of the investment banker to go and convince the potential issuer to make a decision to issue a bond, like unsecured debt, or to issue an equity, so that they can take this security and sell it in the market and make their commission. So there is a little bit problem in Armenia due to the lack of such financial intermediaries, but we really hope that with this acquisition of Warsaw Stock Exchange, the country will become more interesting and we'll have more financial institutions, especially now relocating from Russia, and we are trying to convince everybody to set up a local office in Armenia, like they used to do it in Cyprus, like BPIFRANCE and all these guys they did in 2014 in Cyprus. Now we are trying to convince them to set up offices in Armenia. So if we have financial intermediaries and investment bankers, we'll solve the problem of the underwriting as well. As an exchange, we'll provide the platform. What is great with this integration of Warsaw is that in Warsaw you have all the major banks and investors sitting around Warsaw Stock Exchange, following all the securities which are traded there. Because from the American perspective, the securities, the companies which are traded in Warsaw Stock Exchange, they are SME, but they have the potential to grow, so they invest early with the idea that they will help those companies to even grow bigger and then become a potential candidate for New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ listing. So now if we have this cross-listing with them, which we will soon have, we can act as a bridge. We can be a gateway towards the European capital or Western capital for Eurasian issuers. Like companies from Eurasian Economic Union can become traded in Armenia, and in such cases be also visible in Warsaw, which means to be visible to Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and etc. Which means that there will be some research institutions or houses doing research about these securities, about these companies, ultimately opening new opportunities, gateways to raising more capital, as colleagues mentioned, to create unicorn companies, because it's a bit difficult to immediately create a unicorn company and to list him from Armenia directly in NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. Usually you go step by step, you open up your kind of company towards SME investors, like medium-sized investors, and then you grow initially, and you grow a latest stage IPO listing in New York Stock Exchange. This is how you become a unicorn company. So in that case, I really hope that our platform, our exchange, can become a bridge, a place, a jump start, for example, a jump start towards becoming a unicorn.
Yes, Philip.
I have something to add, which came to my mind after listening to the exchange, is that if you think of bonds, again, as a pyramidal needs, and the bonds, it's like a Lego constructing. You can construct it listed on the exchange or not. So if there's limitation at the beginning of the life of the company, you don't have to list it. You list it once you are prepared and once you have the infrastructure and investment bank. You can rate it as well with ratings, with the big three or a local rating agency. You don't have to. You can build it together again with the life of the company as it's profitability gain and experience. But of course, the top of the icing is the IPO. The name of the list, your name as a corporate name listed on the exchange. We can have dual listing between Armenia and other places like London, Luxembourg, Vienna, Paris. I'm a representative of the Paris Europlus. I can link the two exchanges quite easily. So think of a Lego, and again in the life of the corporate, you construct it together with the bank. It's not necessarily bonds against bank loans. It's in addition to.
Yeah. And by the way, just to add to your point is the following, that Armenian CSD has a link with Clearstream. So what you are telling, so if we are not even go to the bonds listed on an exchange, but for the unlisted bonds, these can be also available in the foreign markets. So that is the entrance of the international investors to Armenia through bonds at this point, and then equities, IPO, etc. Gentlemen, yeah.
Just to add, but usually when you try to open up the country to the foreign investor, it starts from government bonds. This is the first step. So usually you go with Ministry of Finance, Central Bank, and 1 or 2 underwriters, and you try to promote your government bonds to the investors. And the investors.
Now you have that, right?
Yeah, now we are going to London, by the way, on 7th of 8th December.
When it will be? When?
7 and 8.
7 and 8 in December in London. There will be a roadshow, Armenian market roadshow.
We're going to present Armenian government bonds to the investors like BlackRock, Goldman, and Blue Bay, all those like fixed income houses, and try to convince them to enter into the market, because we already have now good bonds, like 10-year bonds are quite big in size, of issuance size, like over $100 million one issuance, which makes them as an eligible investable product for BlackRock. And then we'll aim to put these bonds into bond ETFs as well, so because once you enter into the bond ETF, it becomes much more liquid. And we also need, again, some brokers, market makers, to price them in Bloomberg. So these are all infrastructure. It's like puzzle. You need to add up the different parts of the puzzle so that you can have a complete picture at the end.
Okay, and probably one of the final questions. The organizers are asking us to wrap up, but I'm checking my time. I guess we are in time. Just 5 more minutes. Samson, look, when it comes to the seed stage, these financing schemes, so we have been talking about AICA, you have been talking about this venture capital financing. So can you tell to the audience a little bit about the investment fund schemes working here in Armenia?
You're thinking which investment funds there are for
yeah, the regulation wise. I mean, the regulation, taxation.
Yeah, I mean, setting up an investment fund in Armenia, registering one is fairly straightforward. It might take a month or so. So we just went through one such exercise. In our case, it was a bit more complex structure, but the central bank is also fairly forthcoming with the regulatory, and they want to see proper investment funds operate, attract capital, especially into the productive, innovative sector of the economy. So from that sense, it's a fairly forthcoming landscape.
Thanks. Hi, and coming back to the listing in the exchange, how long does it take in average to be listed, for example, in a C platform?
Well, it depends how well prepared the company is, and
in general.
Now, look, if you have an audit, for example, and you have a good advisor, because usually it's the advisor's job, the underwriters. So you write the prospectus within 3-4 weeks max. You apply to the central bank for permission, and it will take another 1 month, most probably, if you are ready to go. So within a period of 2 months, you are ready to go for a listing. So, but as I said, it all depends. And we can do even the placement in a stock exchange, the auctions, for example. We can start.
It's very easy procedure.
It's not, yes. It's really easy. It's nothing to be.
Great.
It's nothing to be afraid. It's nothing to be afraid.
And great to have a real case here sitting, actually, Unibank. but you are listed in the A market.
Unibank
right?
is a fully listed company, and it's a bank. It's a different story. I mean,
Congratulations to you. Yes, of course, Unibank is
big
not
time
a fintech.
IPO.
Yeah. So as we are short in time, and probably we will have another chance to discuss and to talk during a dinner or a coffee break. So I would like to wrap up this session. So as you heard from our panelists, that investing in Armenia is, first of all, is easy. Setting up the schemes in Armenia, including investment funds, venture capital firms, or whatever, again, is easy. And by the way, as Samson said, that, for example, central bank is quite supportive in this regard. So if you are going to do a business in Armenia and setting up a kind of investment opportunity scheme in Armenia, which will be legal, of course, and should be transparent, so from that perspective, you will have big support from the officials, especially from the regulator. So on this positive note, welcome to Armenia and welcome to invest in Armenia and explore investment opportunities of Armenia. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, dear panel.
Yeah. I just want to add that our conference is being broadcast and will be freely available on FinTech 360 YouTube channel. And I think many Armenian businessmen will have chance to see you talking and finding some new ways to find new investing in their business. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.